Maria here from KUHN RIKON. We're going to be doing today a DUROMATIC pressure cooker beef and ale stew. It's going to be delicious. So I'm just going to finish up some of our prep. I'm someone who tends to get all the prep done first. So then you can just be a bit like an alchemist at the pot, chopping, adding and stirring. So we've got lots of lovely delicious ingredients. I'm actually using beef shin today. Reason being is that any cheaper cuts of meat that have a bit of fat on them are going to be great. And the pressure cooker is ideal for that type of cooking because cheap cuts, when they get put in the pressure cooker, they tend to go much more tender and juicy. So don't be shy, go to your butcher and see what they've got. This would work just as well with the shoulder or other bits of the animal. So I've got carrots, which I'm just chopping in preparation here. And I've actually got my DUROMATIC pressure cooker just preheating for a couple of minutes so that it's ready to go. Again, if you're not familiar with pressure cooking, it's a slightly different way of thinking. You've got two opportunities to get flavor in, the beginning and the end. So this is what we're going to be focusing on right here. So we've got our pressure cooker, which has been preheating a little bit. Now we're going to start getting all that flavor in. So we've got butter. Now quantities I will put into a listing for you so that you can double check. The app will also show you all of this detail, but about 50 grams of butter is going to go in. And let me see, I want to stir this one. Oh, always begins with a good sound and a good smell. So the pressure cooker, essentially, we're starting with it as a saute pot, as you would. Now you can use a pressure cooker as a pot, just an extra pot in your home. It's got a really nice base and it does a great job of any sauteing that you want to do. While that's melting down, I'm just going to reduce that a little bit and we're going to add the onions and we're going to add the garlic. It's pretty much the base for a lot of recipes that I do is onions, garlic and butter or some form of fat. Sometimes I like to use coconut oil depending on the recipe. Now I want to get my beef coated a little bit with flour before it goes in. And I'm going to be a little bit precious today. I don't fancy getting my hands meaty, so we might just make a bit of a meaty mess with our tongs. But yeah, beef shin, anything that you find more affordable, any stews, traditionally stews, all these dishes that are traditional tend to come from the leftovers and whatever you've got handy. So the main thing with the pressure cooker is you want that tenderness to the meat. And actually I've used this as a base for a pie as well. So it worked just as well as a base for a pie. A nice beef shin and ale we're going to be using. So we're just sauteing that down maybe another minute or two. With the pressure cookers, with the Duromatics, you do want to keep an eye on the heat, even when you've got the lid on and the pressure is coming to the right level for you. You just want to keep an eye on it. It's fast cooking, maximum flavor, minimum effort, but you just want to keep a side eye on the temperature, which affects the pressure. So next to go in is the meat. I'm going to use my tongs here. And we just want to seal the meat, essentially. So I'm going to place that in there. All the beef shin. And a bit of extra flour doesn't really matter because at the very end, you are going to be using the flour anyway to thicken up your gravy, so to speak. So it's really up to you. I'm not one for exact sciences, just flavor basically. So this one was very popular in my household. My partner was a big fan. And I did it in the pie as well. Temperature up a little bit. And we're just going to saute that down, seal it for a few minutes, brown meat a little bit. Okay. It's going to take a few minutes. I'm going to get that temperature up even more. So while that's going, I'm going to measure out our ale. Pressure cookers don't need as much liquid as traditional cooking. Hardly any of the liquid is going to dissolve because you've got the lid on. So this is one of the things that people need to bear in mind when they're adjusting their recipes. The app will show you everything you need to know about adjusting or reducing liquids for your recipes. So I highly recommend downloading the KUHN RIKON app. It's going to do wonders for you. I normally go around 1 cup of liquid for a 4-people dish. I use that as a rule of thumb. However, 1 cup is about, this is our measuring jug, 1 cup is about 200 mils to 250 mils. So I'm going to start with 250 mils of ale. Any ale will do. Give it a moment to get the foam reduce. And that could actually be a stock if you prefer. I know obviously like if you're not into the alcohol, you don't have to have alcohol in it. But it does add a nice bit of flavour. Okay, so that's browning away. We're getting some nice sealed flavours in there, and I'm going to add extra flavours. So I actually want to go in with my liquid, not the whole bottle, liquid, put the whole bottle in. 250 mils of the ale. That's going to start pulling it all together. I am going to put 1 stock cube in. When I'm pressure cooking, I very often don't pre-make the stock because you're going to be so choosy with your liquid. I tend to put the stock cube in with the small amount of liquid that I'm using, and this is as much flavour as possible. So the liquid I'm using is flavoured, it's ale. The stock cube is in there to thicken it up and give that extra flavour from the herbs. So we want to simmer that so that the stock cube dissolves, because we don't want it congealing during the pressure cooking process. Extra flavour, tomato paste, 2 tablespoons roughly. But again, up to you how you like your stews, really tomatoey or not. Just that little bit of flavour is always good. This is getting a nice bit of colour now. And we're going to add some herbs. I'm going to go a couple of sprigs of thyme. These can be taken out at the end. And 1 healthy sprig of rosemary. Why not? And we're going to go in with our vegetables, our potatoes, lively one, about 100 grams. This is 4 person. All the recipes I do are for 4 people, and you can always just halve it if there's just 2 of you. And then about 100 grams of carrots as well. Nice stir. Now again, you'll notice not a huge amount of liquid in here. You don't want a huge amount of liquid when you're pressure cooking. That liquid, a little bit of it will evaporate, but not a huge amount. I'm not going to put the parsley in now. I'm going to put that in later. So this is pretty much the base. I want to get a little bit of heat before I put the lid on. So we've put quite a lot of cold ingredients in there. We want to get a little bit more heat. So we'll give that a minute or 2. And I'll try not to drink this ale, but I might add just a teensy splash once it's got a bit more heat. I can hear it sizzling. Should she measure? Should she splash? She's going to splash. There we go. Just a little bit. Just a little bit to loosen it up. Again, so that was 250 mils. I probably just added a cheeky splash of 50 mils, 300 total. I'm really not very good at measuring things, if I'm honest. So I tend to fly by the seat of my pants, but the measurements will all be available for you, and the app is fantastic for that. So this is the Neo DUROMATIC pressure cooker. It's fab because it has a little guidance on what times your food would need to cook. It's very easy to use. You want to line up the arrow, push down, close the lid. So now what we're doing is we're trying to get the DUROMATIC pressure cooker up to the right pressure level. Now our valve is here, and there are 2 red bands, and we want it at level 2 for 30 minutes. But first, it's got to arrive at level 2. I'm not going to start my timer until I see that second red band. So we're going to keep an eye on the temperature. You want it about medium-high heat, whether you're using an induction or a gas, same story. 2/3 of your maximum heat should do the job. And you're going to just keep an eye on it until you see that valve rise up. So here we are, 30 minutes have passed, and I just want to highlight a couple of things for you. I'm going to turn the heat off. 30 minutes have been and gone. But what we see here is the 2 red bands. I've done other recipes where I've done a manual steam release, which is where you push down on the valve and you'll have the steam coming out. Today, and this is really important for soft, tender meat, it's really important that you leave it to naturally release the pressure. So all that means is you take it fully off the heat, okay, and you walk away. There is no longer more pressure or heat coming into it. You're going to let the temperature come back down and you're going to let the pressure naturally release. So it's just going to do its own thing naturally. And I'm just going to chill for a little bit, maybe have a nibble of some bread. So the valve has come all the way down. What that means is the pressure has released. It was a natural steam release. That's what we want. We're going to open and we're going to remove the lid. So let's give that a nice big stir. Now, what I like to do is thicken it up at the end, which is why we have a little bit of flour left over from at the beginning. But we've got a nice golden colour. We've got some really good flavours in there. So I'm going to bring it back over to the heat. I'm going to give it a little bit of heat, just a low to medium heat, to enable us to put some flour back in there and to thicken it up a little bit. This is a personal preference. Obviously, if you were doing this as like a pie filling, you would want it thicker because you don't want it to be too runny. But if you were doing this more as like a soupy stew, then you can even keep it that little bit more liquidy. Either way, it's going to have the flavour in there, which is the benefit from your pressure cooking. So we're going to bring that up. So a little bit of heat. And we're going to add, I tend to add 1 or 2 teaspoons of flour. You could use corn flour, you can use whatever you have handy. But the fantastic thing is that the meat will be melty. The carrots and the potatoes are going to be perfectly cooked. And you haven't lost any of that flavour, but you've done it in roughly a third of the time as you would with conventional cooking. So we've got some heat here simmering away. We're going to add now a little bit of flour. Let's thicken it a little bit. And I'm serving this today just with sliced bread, nicely heavily buttered sliced bread. That's just how I roll. You could be doing this with a mash. You could be putting it in something. You could have missed the potatoes out at the beginning and just be serving it with mash. Look, have fun. Have a play with it. So we've got a little bit more thickness there now. Only takes a couple of minutes. And when you're serving, you can avoid, obviously, the rosemary stalks and any woody stick bits that you might have in there. If you're going to be careful, you can take it out. But that, in my opinion, is ready to go. So we're going to go off with the heat, safety first. We're going to go back and we're going to start serving. So I like a ladle. I love a ladle. Oh, salt and pepper to season. This could be something you leave on the table. This could be something you add. Personal preference again. I'm going to do a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. I've been trying to reduce salt in my diet, so my brain's not kind of leaning towards salt in everything, but the pressure cooker will give you plenty of flavour, so be mindful of the extras that you're going to put in. So here we have beef shin and ale stew. Done in the pressure cooker, fraction of the time, but maximum flavour, maximum tenderness. I want a bit of extra carrot and meat there. And just with chunky bread, bit of butter, a little bit of chopped parsley on there for a bit of fragrance. And to be honest, that's your job done.